You don't notice it most of the time. It hides in your smile, in the way you soften your voice, in the hesitation before you say what you really think. Every day, you bend yourself for invisible applause. You check the eyes of others like a gambler checks the dice, searching for approval, terrified of rejection. And here's the truth no one dares to tell you. The more you chase being liked, the less powerful you become. Approval is not respect. It is dependency, dressed as validation. What you're about to hear will feel like forbidden knowledge. Philosophers whispered it, rulers weaponized it, but society hides it from you because it is dangerous. It makes you uncontrollable. You'll discover why chasing approval robs you of strength, and how to replace it with something far rarer. An authority so unshakable, people stop testing you and start respecting you. By the end of this video, you'll see the trap you've been living in, and you'll know exactly how to walk out. Miss this and you stay in chains, smiling for permission that never mattered. Why approval is a trap. Think about how often your mood rises and falls on the invisible scale of someone else's reaction. A friend doesn't text back, and you feel uneasy. Your boss frowns during a meeting, and suddenly you question your competence. A stranger ignores your post online, and you wonder if you're even interesting. This is not just bad habit, it's addiction. Psychologists have proven that approval triggers the same reward circuits as sugar, nicotine, or gambling. Every smile, every like, every nod of validation is a microdose of dopamine. You tell yourself you're just being social, but your brain is running on the same loop as a slot machine. Pull the lever, wait for the lights. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. And because the reward is unpredictable, the craving intensifies. You chase harder. Biology explains why. In the tribes of our ancestors, rejection wasn't an insult, it was death. To be cast out meant starvation or predators. Approval was survival. That wiring never left you. Which is why, even today, your body reacts to social rejection like a physical wound. Studies show that the brain regions for emotional pain and literal pain overlap. A disapproving glance cuts you as sharply as a blade. But here is the paradox. What once ensured survival now guarantees weakness. In the modern world, your life doesn't depend on the tribe's constant nod. Yet your brain still acts as if it does. You give strangers online the same power over your emotions that once belonged only to your village. You live like a beggar, waiting for scraps of validation that don't even nourish you. And approval, like sugar, always demands more. One compliment is never enough. One like never satisfies. You build your identity on a shifting foundation, and when it trembles, so do you. The very thing you crave becomes the source of your fragility. Imagine approval as a sweet poison. At first it feels harmless. Harmless to smile a little wider, to agree when you don't, to soften your edges so people like you. But over time, the sweetness turns corrosive. It eats at your authenticity until you no longer remember who you are without their applause. You are not addicted to approval because you are weak. You are addicted because evolution made you this way. But now evolution has become outdated. If you keep following that script, you will never rise above mediocrity. Approval will keep you soft, agreeable, predictable. Safe, yes, but never powerful. And here lies the first brutal truth. The pursuit of approval is not harmless. It is the architecture of your own chains. Approval makes you weak. Look closely at the moments when you surrendered your strength. The times you swallowed words you wanted to say, the times you laughed at a joke you didn't find funny, the times you nodded in agreement when every fiber of your being wanted to resist. Each time you did that, you weren't being polite. You were handing over power. Approval makes you weak because it shifts the center of gravity away from you and into the hands of others. Instead of standing firm in what you believe, you wait for someone else to validate it. Instead of moving with conviction, you hover, watching the faces in the room like a servant, checking the mood of the master. You begin to live reactively. Your emotions, your confidence, your decisions, they're all outsourced. History is full of rulers and leaders who crumbled because of this weakness. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king of Rome, who warned against wasting your life by worrying what others think of you. He had seen how senators played the game of popularity, desperate to win approval, terrified of disapproval. Those men, Aurelius observed, became easy to manipulate. They could be swayed with flattery, broken by criticism, controlled by the very crowd they hoped to impress. This is why Niccolò Machiavelli, centuries later, was so ruthless in his judgment. He who seeks to be loved is easily destroyed. Love, approval, admiration, these are unstable currencies. The moment they are withheld, your entire identity collapses. If your confidence is built on their applause, what happens when the crowd goes silent? You sink. Modern psychology confirms this fragility. When you chase approval, you activate what's called external locus of control. That means your sense of worth is determined by forces outside you. People who operate like this suffer higher anxiety, more insecurity, and less resilience. Why? Because their value is always negotiable. They are strong only when others say they are. Think of a CEO who obsesses over being liked by employees. At first, it feels noble. What leader doesn't want loyalty? But the deeper truth is ugly. The moment hard decisions arrive, this leader stalls. He cannot risk upsetting anyone. His need for approval paralyzes him. Eventually, his company suffers, not because he lacked intelligence, but because he lacked independence. His fear of losing love cost him respect. Now bring this closer to your life. Imagine you're in a meeting. You have an idea, a bold one. You know it could change everything. But before you open your mouth, you scan the room. Who will approve? Who might disapprove? In that hesitation, in that single pause, the idea dies. Not because it was flawed, but because you gave away your power. Multiply that by hundreds of small hesitations, and you begin to see how approval has been robbing you for years. Here's the brutal paradox. The harder you try to be liked, the less people actually respect you. When you contort yourself for approval, others sense it. They may smile at you, but deep down they know you're bending. And people do not respect those who bend too easily. They exploit them. Approval makes you weak because it is slavery disguised as kindness. You chain yourself not with iron, but with smiles. You kneel, not before kings, but before the crowd. And every time you do, you grow a little smaller. The truth is simple, but hard to swallow. You cannot be both a seeker of approval and a holder of power. One cancels the other. Respect is built on boundaries. Respect is not given freely. It is not won by charm nor secured by endless compromise. Respect is built brick by brick on the boundaries you draw and the lines you refuse to erase. A person who seeks approval will always blur their boundaries. They will say yes when they want to say no. They will allow interruptions, disrespect, even exploitation, all because they are terrified of disappointing someone. But here's the paradox. The more you give in, the less you are valued. Boundaries are like walls around a fortress. Without them, anyone can wander inside, take what they like, and leave. With them, every interaction requires respect. A fortress without walls is not admired, it is invaded. Look at history's strongest leaders. Think of Alexander the Great. His soldiers adored him, but not because he catered to their every whim. He set clear, harsh standards: discipline, endurance, obedience. Those boundaries created respect. His army would follow him into the most brutal deserts, not because he was nice, but because he was firm. They respected his lines. Machiavelli was blunt about this. It is safer for a ruler to be feared than loved, if you must choose, because fear respects boundaries. Love, if it is too soft, dissolves them. And when boundaries dissolve, respect evaporates. Now think about your own life. How many times have you let someone cross a line because you didn't want conflict? You told yourself it was kindness, but later you noticed something. They didn't appreciate your sacrifice. They expected more. They pushed harder. They respected you less. Boundaries signal self-respect. They say, this is who I am. This is what I will allow. This is where I stop. And once you say it clearly, people have only two options: adjust to your line or walk away. Both outcomes are victories. If they adjust, they show respect. If they leave, they reveal they only valued you as long as you bent. Psychology proves this as well. Studies on relationships show that those who assert boundaries early, whether in work, romance, or friendships, are consistently rated as more trustworthy and more respected. Why? Because boundaries create clarity, and clarity commands respect. Imagine a manager who has no boundaries. Employees interrupt him at all hours, dump tasks on his desk, and push deadlines without consequence. He thinks he's being a good boss, approachable and kind, but in reality, his team walks over him. They don't see strength, only softness. His attempts to win love destroy his authority. Contrast this with a manager who draws firm boundaries. He sets expectations, enforces deadlines, and refuses to tolerate disrespect. At first, some may resist, but slowly, respect grows. People understand where they stand with him. His boundaries create order. His authority becomes unshakable. Boundaries also filter your circle. They reveal who truly values you. A friend who sulks because you said no was never a friend, only a consumer of your compliance. A colleague who respects your limit is one who respects you as a person. Without boundaries, you cannot tell the difference. Here's the brutal truth. If you do not build boundaries, others will build them for you, and you will live trapped inside their expectations. Boundaries are not walls to keep the world out. They are walls to keep yourself intact. They protect your time, your energy, your dignity. They are not selfish, they are survival. Respect is not built on how much you give, but on how clearly you define what cannot be taken. The ones who stand tallest in history, leaders, thinkers, creators, were not universally loved, but they were always respected, and that respect was born from lines that could not be crossed. So remember, approval bends, boundaries hold, and only what holds can command respect. Why fear outlasts love? Machiavelli. You've been told all your life that love is the most powerful force, that if people love you, they will stand by you, that if you just keep everyone happy, loyalty will follow. But here's the truth Machiavelli whispered 500 years ago, a truth so sharp it still cuts today. Love is fragile, fear is durable. Think about it. Love is tied to emotion, to changing moods, to circumstances you cannot control. A friend may love you until your success outshines theirs. A colleague may love you until you get the promotion they wanted. Love shifts with jealousy, with desire, with convenience. It is conditional, unstable, fleeting. Fear, however, does not bend so easily. Fear is rooted in consequences. It doesn't matter if someone likes you. What matters is whether they know crossing you will cost them. Fear lingers long after affection fades, because it's not about how they feel, it's about what they risk. Machiavelli put it bluntly in The Prince. If you must choose between being loved or feared, choose fear. Why? Because love is a promise people make when it suits them. Fear is a calculation they carry with them even when they want to betray you. Now, don't mistake this. Machiavelli never said cruelty for its own sake was wise. He warned against needless brutality, but he understood the iron law of power. Love without fear breeds weakness, and fear without love breeds revolt. The balance is this: love if you can, but never without the backbone of fear. Look at history. Julius Caesar was adored by the Roman people, loved like a father, yet his closest allies, the senators, killed him in cold blood. Love from the masses did not save him from daggers. Compare that to Genghis Khan. He was not loved, he was feared. Cities surrendered before his armies even arrived. His name alone carried terror across continents. Did fear fade? No. For generations after his death, entire regions still trembled at the memory of his wrath. Even in modern life, you see the same dynamic. A boss who tries to be loved by their employees, buying gifts, tolerating lateness, overlooking failures, soon discovers the love is shallow. The moment he has to enforce discipline, resentment replaces affection. He thought love would protect him. It didn't. But the boss who establishes consequences from the start, who makes it clear that laziness, disrespect, or betrayal have costs, commands respect. Employees may not gush over him, they may not even like him, but they do not forget him, they don't cross him. His authority lasts because it is reinforced by fear of consequences. Even psychology confirms this. Research on behavioral conditioning shows that punishment leaves a longer imprint on memory than reward. A child who is occasionally scolded remembers the boundary far more vividly than the reward of praise. Fear imprints, love fades. Think of your own life. Have you ever bent over backwards to win someone's love? Sacrificed, pleased, even humiliated yourself, only to be discarded when you were no longer useful? That's love's fragility. But when someone has feared disappointing you, when they've thought twice before disrespecting you, haven't you noticed? That respect lingers. They remember your reaction. They remember the boundary. Here's the paradox. If you chase love, you lose both love and respect. If you establish fear through strength, calm, consistent consequences, you often gain both. People may never admit it, but they feel safer around those they respect. Fear creates order. Order creates stability. Stability, in time, can even grow into genuine loyalty. Machiavelli's wisdom is not comfortable, but it is real. Love is a luxury. Fear is insurance. You cannot control love, but you can command fear. And in a world where loyalty shifts like sand, insurance is power. So, the choice before you is not whether you want to be loved. Everyone wants that. The question is whether you are willing to sacrifice your strength for it, because the one who is feared may not be adored, but they will not be forgotten and they will not be easily betrayed. That's the power of fear. It outlasts love. Always. Silence, detachment, hidden power. When was the last time you sat in silence while someone else scrambled to explain themselves? Think about that moment. Didn't the silence make them more uncomfortable than you? That's not an accident. That's power. You've been conditioned to believe power comes from volume. Talking more, posting more, being more visible. But the paradox of true strength is this. The quieter you are, the louder your presence becomes. Look at history's great figures. Leaders who didn't rush to fill the air with words were often the ones who commanded the deepest respect. Why? Because silence forces others to lean in. It creates space. It makes people project onto you, guessing what you're thinking, what you'll do next. In that uncertainty, you hold the upper hand. Detachment is its twin. While most people beg for approval, attach their worth to every opinion, and bleed themselves dry trying to keep up with others, the detached individual radiates something rare: independence. You don't chase, you don't cling, you don't explain. And in that detachment, people sense that you are not bound by the same invisible chains that trap them. Machiavelli understood this. He observed that princes who revealed too much, who showed desperation for support, were easily manipulated. But those who withheld, who appeared self-sufficient, created an aura that no enemy could easily penetrate. Silence is not emptiness, it is a weapon. Detachment is not apathy, it is armor. Consider the courtroom. The lawyer who interrupts constantly, who argues every point, seems insecure, almost desperate to be believed. The one who speaks less, who chooses words carefully and who pauses at the right moments, suddenly the jury hangs on each syllable. Silence adds weight. Detachment adds credibility. Or think about negotiations. The amateur talks endlessly, rushing to justify, to persuade, to convince. The professional listens, nods, waits. When they finally speak, the room pays attention. Why? Because scarcity creates value. Words too easily given are ignored. Words rationed, measured, deliberate. Those carry impact. Detachment works the same way in relationships. Have you ever noticed that the person who seems least desperate for approval often ends up being the most admired? People chase those who don't beg to be chased. The moment you detach from needing constant validation, you flip the dynamic. Instead of you running after approval, approval starts chasing you. Psychology even backs this up. Research on reactance shows that when people sense you are not trying to control their opinion, they paradoxically respect you more. Detachment frees you from their judgment, and in turn, makes them judge you more favorably. But here's the danger. Silence and detachment are misunderstood. They're not about arrogance or cold indifference. They're about restraint. They're about creating space for others to reveal themselves while you remain grounded. They're about showing you are not enslaved by approval, fear, or panic. Think of a storm. Most people are like leaves, tossed around violently by every gust of wind, approval, rejection, praise, criticism. But the detached individual is like the mountain, unmoved. And in that stillness, others find something magnetic. Modern leaders know this too. Look at Warren Buffett. In a world of financial noise, he rarely speaks. When he does, the world listens. Or Elon Musk. Whether you admire him or not, notice his tactic. He tweets sporadically, sometimes disappears, then drops a single sentence that shakes industries. Silence builds anticipation. Detachment magnifies influence. Even in your daily life, this is your hidden weapon. Next time you're in a group, resist the urge to fill every gap with chatter. Hold your silence. Observe. Notice how quickly people start wondering what you're thinking. That curiosity is respect in disguise. Detach from the need to explain yourself every time someone doubts you. Let your actions, not your justifications, carry your authority. Detach from the chaos of social media validation. Stop feeding the addiction to likes. Detach from the urge to prove your worth to those who would never respect you anyway. Because here's the truth. Approval seekers are predictable. But the silent and detached are unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. So if you want unshakable strength, practice this. Speak less, mean more. Detach more, chase less. Stop begging for space in people's minds. Occupy it by leaving blanks they are desperate to fill. In the end, silence and detachment don't make you invisible, they make you unforgettable. Turn approval into power. You cannot live entirely free of approval. To deny it altogether is another trap, because humans are social creatures. But here's the difference. Weak people are controlled by approval, while powerful people convert it into fuel. They don't chase it blindly, they channel it strategically. Think of approval as currency. If you spend it everywhere, begging for it from anyone, you end up bankrupt. But if you invest it carefully, seeking the respect of the right few, you build unshakable power. Machiavelli hinted at this when he wrote that a wise ruler should not try to be loved by all, but instead focus on the loyalty of a select circle. The approval of peasants is fleeting. The approval of generals, advisors, and allies, that is power. In your own life, it is the same. You don't need to be liked by hundreds of acquaintances. You need the respect of a small, decisive group, your mentors, your allies, your inner circle. Look at history. Julius Caesar was not universally adored. In fact, many Romans despised him, but he secured the loyalty of his legions. That approval, the right approval, gave him the strength to defy the Senate itself. Or consider Martin Luther King Jr. He was not approved of by the entire country. He was hated by many, but he drew immense power from the approval of his movement, from those who shared his vision. With that foundation, he reshaped a nation. The danger is when you scatter your attention, when you chase approval from strangers, co-workers, or casual friends who don't matter to your destiny. That is noise. The powerful learn to filter. They ask, whose respect will actually change the game for me? And then they focus their energy there. There is another layer to this, reframing approval itself. Instead of seeing it as validation of your worth, see it as evidence of alignment. When someone you respect approves of you, it means your actions are aligned with their values, their mission. That approval isn't your goal, it's a signal you're on the right path. Modern psychology supports this too. Research shows that people who pursue authentic self-expression rather than external validation attract deeper, more enduring approval. Why? Because authenticity is magnetic. Approval chasers dilute themselves into blandness. Power builders sharpen themselves into clarity, and clarity always wins respect. Think about this in your daily life. Suppose you're at work. You could try to impress everyone, your boss, your colleagues, even the people who secretly undermine you. Or you could focus on the key players, the 2 or 3 people whose respect will open doors, create opportunities, and shape your future. When you pour energy there, every ounce of effort has exponential impact. Or in relationships. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to be liked by every acquaintance, focus on your closest allies, the ones who matter in your life's battles. Stop scattering your soul for crumbs of approval. Start gathering strength by concentrating it. Here's the brutal truth. Approval is inevitable, but you must decide, will it enslave you or will it serve you? If you chase it from everyone, you become a beggar. If you choose it from the right few, you become a king. And here's the final paradox. Once you stop chasing approval, once you set boundaries and detach, something strange happens. People offer you their approval freely. Respect follows those who no longer beg for it. Like shadows chasing the sun, approval starts following power. So turn it into power. Don't seek it desperately. Don't waste it on the crowd. Anchor it in a circle that matters. Build your fortress on that foundation, and you'll discover what most people never do. Approval, when mastered, is not your prison. It is your weapon. Let's pause for a moment, strip away all the philosophy, the history, the psychology. Let's make it personal. Think about your life. How many times have you said yes when everything inside you screamed no? How many times have you bitten your tongue, smiled politely, bent your back, just to be liked? And in those moments, did you feel powerful? Or did you feel smaller? The truth is, you've been carrying invisible chains. Every compliment you chase, every nod of approval you crave, every like on a screen that you refresh again and again, it's a leash around your neck. And the worst part? The more you beg for it, the less respect you earn. Approval doesn't strengthen you, it bleeds you. But here's the shift. You don't have to keep living like this. Power is not about dominating others. It's about reclaiming yourself. It's about finally standing tall and saying, I don't need to be loved by everyone. I need to respect myself. Imagine what your life would look like if you stopped explaining yourself to people who don't matter. Imagine the freedom of saying no without guilt. Imagine walking into a room and not worrying what anyone thinks, because you already know who you are. That's not arrogance, that's clarity, that's strength, that's unshakable power. You see, approval is fragile. It changes with moods, with trends, with gossip. But respect, true respect, lasts. And it begins with you. Respect yourself enough to draw boundaries. Respect yourself enough to detach from the noise. Respect yourself enough to stop begging for scraps and start choosing whose voice matters. One day, you'll look back and realize, every time you chased approval, you lost a piece of yourself, and every time you chose respect, you gained a piece of power. So here's your moment, the moment to decide. Will you keep living as a prisoner of other people's opinions, or will you break free and build the kind of strength that no one can take away? Because approval fades, fear fades, love fades, but power built on respect, that outlives you. If this message hit you, if you felt those invisible chains tightening while you listened, then you already know what you need to do. You've spent too long begging for approval, too long measuring your worth by the smile of someone else, too long wasting energy on people who will forget your name tomorrow. That ends here. Subscribe now, not because I need your approval, but because you need this truth in your life. Every week, I bring you insights that tear down illusions, that arm you with philosophy and psychology sharp enough to cut through the lies you've been told about power, respect, and success. Ask yourself this: who will you be 1 year from now if you keep chasing approval? Exhausted, invisible, controlled. But who will you be if you break free? Respected, unshakable, untouchable. This is your turning point. Don't scroll. Don't save it for later. Later is how you stayed trapped for years. Power is built now. Hit subscribe. Join the people who have chosen respect over approval. And remember, being liked is fragile. Being respected is forever.